Internationally, 17 dead in Dubai bus crash after driver hits overhead sign. And in sports, Australia beats Pakistan in Cricket World Cup match. David Warner hits century. We'll have the details to these and other stories after this message.
Another look.
Different from how you've seen it before.
Another look.
Takes an in-depth look into business, politics, science, technology, religion, and more.
Another look.
Featuring documentaries from the BBC, regional features, and local ones too.
Another look.
Every Monday at 3 p.m. on the Eastern Caribbean's powerhouse, Vaughan.
Welcome back on now on to the national news in detail. The police and the St. Kitts Nevis Fire and Rescue Services SKNFRS are investigating a house fire that occurred on Low Street in Charlestown, Nevis on Tuesday, June 11th. The VON Newsline contacted Divisional Fire Officer of the Fire Services Department Nevis Division, Mr. Garfield Hodge, for further details on that matter.
Responded at about 1:22 in the PM, and upon arrival, the unit would have met the dwelling completely engulfed in flames and immediately went into action and extinguished the fire sometime after. The unit, according to what they would have reported, myself was there as well, it was a partially wooden and concrete structure, and at the time it was occupied by Guyanese national by the name of Shazina Grant and her sons, an 18-year-old and a 5-year-old, who were home at the time of the incident.
He said that minor injuries were sustained.
Circumstances are of such, according to Ms. Grant, she was alerted by her sons who were occupying a bedroom while she was in the living room that there was a fire, and immediately herself and her 18-year-old son attempted to extinguish the fire, but they were soon overwhelmed by the fire, and this would have resulted in her son, the 18-year-old, sustaining minor burns to his face and shoulders.
Mr. Hodge, after expressing his gratitude to the officers and persons who helped extinguish the fire, also made this appeal to the public.
I would want to advise all to remember not to smoke in bed. And if for any reason you're feeling tired or sleepy, do not, I repeat, do not attempt to cook. And as it relates to the overloading of electrical circuits, I would advise you to desist from this practice, because this practice can result in fires. And so if we would pay attention and take heed to these simple fire tips, it would go a long way in fire prevention as far as house fires and losing properties and limbs are concerned.
Mr. Garfield Hodge. No deaths were recorded and no determination has been made with regards to the cause of the fire. The West Indies tenure of office of Prime Minister Constitution Amendment Bill 2018 will in the future be tabled for a second and third reading in the National Assembly. The bill seeks to make an amendment of Section 52(2) of the Constitution. With the amendment, a representative shall not hold office as Prime Minister for more than 2 terms, whether or not they have served consecutively. If and when the bill is passed in the House, it will be a landmark piece of legislation in the British Caribbean. Here is Attorney General, the Honourable Vincent Byron, providing an update on the aforementioned bill.
This is a bill that has had a first reading as well and is before the Parliament, and we expect that over the next few weeks, next couple of months, that this bill will also be tabled for second and third reading for determination by the Parliament.
Attorney General, the Honourable Vincent Byron. In police news, a man who was wanted by police in relation to escaping lawful custody has been captured. Initially, The Royal St. Christopher Nevis Police Force, RSNPF, issued a wanted person bulletin for Javon Mills of St. Peter's, St. Kitts. Additionally, anyone who saw him or knew of his whereabouts was asked to contact the Basse Police Station at 465-2241. However, police captured Mills and issued a communique today, June 12, stating, and I quote, "The RSNPF wishes to inform the general public that Javon Mills of St. Peter's was located by police," end quote. The police also expressed their appreciation to the media for assisting in disseminating the information and to the general public for their assistance. In more police news, a man was involved in a traffic accident while attempting to evade police on Monday, June 10th. The accident occurred at around 7:15 p.m. and involved motorcycle PB2708, which was driven by Dominique Green of Old Road, and motor jeep P372, owned and driven by Larry Hobson of Shadwell Gardens. Police say the driver of motorcycle PB2708 was driving on the island's main road when police who were out on patrol discovered the motorcycle driving without the headlights on. The police attempted to stop Green using the siren and lights, but he refused to comply. While evading the police, he collided with the right rear section of motor jeep P372, which was traveling from west to east along Keon Street and indicated to turn right on Cunningham Street. Green sustained injuries and was transported to the JNF General Hospital, where he was treated for his injuries and discharged. The Honorable Malcolm Gishard knew what he wanted for Nevis and left an imprint of teachable moments as he served in the Nevis Island Administration NIA. So says former Premier of Nevis, the Honorable Vance Amory. He made a comment at the Cabinet's annual memorial service at the Bath Cemetery on Tuesday, June 11th, to observe the 12th anniversary of his colleague's passing. He thanked the current administration for remembering his former colleague. Mr. Amory recalled his former colleague's outstanding attributes, which he says helped to pave the way for a better Nevis. The former Premier stated that he was in England at the time of Mr. Gishard's passing, and the memory of that day remains in his memory. He also used the opportunity to express his condolences to those who continue to mourn. And lastly, in our national news segment,
we will be celebrating Nevis Academy Day on Friday, June the 14th, and we will close school for the morning, and we're going to go into the community and do some good things. At 11 o'clock, we'll go to the Flamboyant Nursing Home, and they have been practicing their songs and their poems and whatnot, and they will be entertaining the seniors, the residents at the Flamboyant Nursing Home. They will also be taking gift box, and that gift box is filled with goodies for the residents.
Principal of the Nevis Academy, Dr. Andrea Busu. She was explaining an initiative dubbed Nevis Academy Day, which will be held on Friday, June 14th. She also gave the rationale about the initiative.
It is something where we say it's Nevis Academy Day, where it does something for the community, and that's why we call it Nevis Academy Day. It is very community-oriented. I grew up being a Pathfinder and cleaning up and taking part in, my church take part in soup kitchen and stuff like that. So I grew up in a very community-oriented family, and I like the idea that children should be community-oriented, because when you invest in your community, you do not destroy it.
Dr. Busu mentioned that persons or passers-by should expect to receive coupons from the students.
We will just have a few coupons, gift certificates of $20, where they will be able to go to the gas station. One of our sponsors, Reliable Motors, who also sponsors the football team and the spelling bee for Nevis Academy.
Principal of the Nevis Academy, Dr. Andrea Busu. And that's the national news segment. You can visit our website at www.vonradio.com, or you can check us out on Facebook at Von Radio or our Von Radio YouTube channel for these and other stories. Regional news comes up next.
Ladies and gentlemen, this here's another one for the steppers.
Swipe to win big in 2019. That's right, the Bank of Nevis Limited is once again giving you, our valued customers, a chance to win big. Just swipe or use your Bond Visa credit card for US $100 for a chance to win a cruise for two, an iPhone XS, or a grocery dash at Best Buy Supermarket.
Say what?
Sign up for a Bond Visa credit card and automatically be entered for a chance to win. This offer ends August 31st, 2019. So tell your friends and family, just swipe to win big with the Bank of Nevis. The Bank of Nevis Limited, improving the quality of life. Like us on Facebook or follow us on Instagram.
Welcome back and now on to the regional news. Puerto Rico will receive long-awaited disaster relief assistance. This comes on the heels of a disaster relief legislation which was signed by U.S. President Donald Trump. It will send $19 billion in aid to Puerto Rico and several states battered by hurricanes, flooding, fires and earthquakes. In the wake of this, Mr. Trump claims Puerto Rico should love him even though he fought efforts to give more aid to the U.S. territory. Congress failed to approve the aid money quickly in no small part because Trump did not want to give more relief funds to the U.S. territory. Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico in September 2017. The storm knocked out power for 1.5 million people and it took 11 months to restore it. The island's government estimated the hurricane caused nearly 3,000 deaths. In the Cayman Islands, the country's Premier Alden McLaughlin has said that at least a dozen vehicles are imported to the Cayman Islands every day, adding to the island's growing traffic problems. More than 4,000 SUVs, trucks and motorcycles were shipped into the islands last year. Imports have doubled in the past decade. The Cayman Compass quoted Premier McLaughlin as saying, "We need other alternatives to everybody having to own a car." Mr. McLaughlin was speaking in response to questions from Georgetown Central Legislator Kenneth Bryan in the Legislative Assembly last week. Bryan asked for figures on vehicle imports over the last decade and an explanation of what government was doing to ease congestion on Cayman's crowded roads. The statistics provided by the Premier in response show that imports rose from 2,298 in 2009 to 4,457 last year. Mr. McLaughlin said that the imports were linked to population growth and were clearly having an impact on traffic. He said government was aware of the problem and had announced in the recent strategic policy statement that a major traffic study was being commissioned to look at solutions. Out of St. Lucia, a total of 503 accidents have been reported to the traffic units in Castries and Beaufort from January 1st, 2019 to date. 24 of these accidents involved pedestrians, one resulting in loss of life. Based on an article from stlucianewsonline.com, in addition to the accidents, the Royal St. Lucia Police Force reminded road users, both motor vehicular and pedestrian traffic, to adhere to traffic regulations when utilizing the roadways. Moreover, there will be an all-out campaign by police to clamp down on traffic violations in an effort to reduce traffic violations, including improper use of roads by pedestrians. In Haiti, a military activity transpired in the Dominican-Haitian border at Dajabon, where patrols were increased to stop people trying to cross illegally. The first group of soldiers to be deployed at strategic points arrived at the border to prevent the entrance of undocumented Haitians escaping the protests in several Haitian towns to demand President Jovenel Moise's resignation and clarification of the Petro-Carib corruption case. At least one death has been reported in Haiti. The soldiers were stationed at Fort Bello, which are of the 10th Army Battalion. And lastly, in our regional news segment, the British Virgin Islands BVI is expected to lose millions in revenue in the upcoming cruise tourism season, Premier Andrew Foy has said. Foy, who is also Minister of Tourism, said this is because of a commercial decision by Norwegian Cruise Line to adjust their itineraries and reduce ship calls to the territory. He said the territory will see a passenger shortfall of 180,000 for the 2019-2020 season as a result. This translates to an estimated loss in revenue of over $14 million that's actually projected using a passenger spend of $78.11 based on studies conducted by Business Research Economic Advisors, Mr. Foy said. The Premier, who was addressing a recent sitting of the House of Assembly, said the cruise line's decision was communicated to the BVI Ports Authority since November 2016. During that correspondence, Norwegian Cruise had told the territory to expect the first major shortfall of some 18,200 passengers for the 2017-2018 season. According to Foy, the cruise line also said at the time that the shortfall would continue into future seasons. The Tourism Minister indicated that after receiving the letter, the BVI Ports Authority sent a response accepting the remedies that had been suggested by the cruise line. One such remedy was for the cruise liners to pay a shortfall fee based on the territory's passenger tax. And that's it for our regional news segment. Stay with us for news around the world. Welcome back and now on to the international news. At least 17 people of different nationalities have been killed and several more injured after a bus hit an overhead road sign in Dubai. The Oman-registered vehicle was carrying 31 passengers when the crash occurred at Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Road, police said. Indian officials said that 8 Indian citizens were among the dead. The driver, who was in his 50s, is receiving treatment for minor injuries and an investigation is underway. On their official Twitter account, Dubai police offered their sincere condolences and sympathies to the families of the victims. No official cause or deaths have yet emerged about the crash. Local media said the vehicle swerved to avoid a height restriction sign, which then sliced through the roof. Hundreds of thousands of people have been evacuated along parts of India's western coast as the region braces itself for a powerful cyclone. Cyclone Vayu, which has been classified as very severe, is expected to make landfall early on Thursday. Forecasters warned of heavy rains and high winds of up to 170 kilometers per hour. Schools and colleges in Gujarat State and Union Territory of Daman and Diu will remain closed until June 13th. The port at the Gulf of Camby and in Gujarat has suspended all operations. The National Disaster Response Force NDRF has deployed teams along the coastal areas of Saurashtra and Kutch for rescue and relief work. 2 Canadian women have been rescued after they were kidnapped last week by gunmen in Ghana's second city, Kumasi, a government minister has said. The 2 students aged 19 and 20 were working as volunteers for a charity when they were seized. Kidnappings in Ghana, regarded as one of West Africa's most stable states, are extremely rare. However, there have been several recently, usually involving ransom demands. Security forces carried out an operation in the early hours of today to rescue the women, Information Minister Kojo Opang Nkrumah said in a statement. Police have fired rubber bullets and tear gas at protesters in Hong Kong, where anger at a new extradition bill has spilled over into violence. Protesters blocked key roads around government buildings and threw bricks and projectiles at police. The government is still backing a bill which would allow extradition to mainland China, and it is expected to pass its final vote on June 20th. Han Seng-chan, who was Hong Kong's chief secretary in the 1990s, told the BBC nobody wanted to see violence.
You have to understand that insofar as the younger generation is concerned, they already feel they face a very bleak future. And having taken to the streets, 1 million of them on Sunday, that very evening, the chief executive saw fit to issue a statement reiterating her determination to put forward these hated proposals to the Legislative Council. So the young people feel they have nothing to lose.
A 5-year-old boy in Uganda has died from Ebola, health officials have said. The death is the first in Uganda amid a deadly outbreak in neighboring Democratic Republic of Congo. Officials said his grandmother and younger brother also had the disease. The Ugandan government is now reporting 7 suspected cases of Ebola. The BBC's Grant Ferry reports.
The child died in a medical isolation unit in western Uganda, not far from the Congolese border. He'd crossed over on Sunday along with several other family members. They were returning from a visit to the DRC during which the child's grandfather died of Ebola. Since the outbreak began last August, about 2,000 cases have been reported in eastern Congo. 2/3 of them have been fatal. In recent months, the Ugandan authorities have been preparing for the arrival of Ebola, vaccinating thousands of health workers.
At least 26 civilians have been injured in a missile attack by Yemen's rebel Houthi movement on an airport in southwest Saudi Arabia, the military says. 3 women and 2 children were among those hurt when they arrived at Abha Airport after it was hit earlier today, according to a statement. The rebels said they had launched a cruise missile at the facility. The BBC's Middle East analyst Alan Johnston reports.
This Houthi rebel attack targeted the airport serving the southern Saudi city of Abha, not far from the border with Yemen. Saudi officials say women and children were among those hurt when the arrivals hall was hit. Saudi Arabia leads a military coalition that backs Yemen's government in its war with the Houthis. The rebels have carried out numerous cross-border drone and missile attacks in the past, but it's rare for large numbers of civilians to be wounded in such strikes.
And lastly, in our international news segment, hundreds of people have been detained at a Moscow rally demanding punishment for police who detained an anti-corruption journalist. Officers in riot gear clashed with protesters during the unauthorized march in support of Ivan Gulnov. Among those detained at the rally were fellow journalists as well as opposition leader Alexei Navalny. Mr. Gulnov was freed on Tuesday after drug-dealing charges against him were dropped following a public outcry. Interior Minister Vladimir Kolokotsev said officers who had taken part in his detention would be suspended during an investigation. And that brings us to the end of our news segment. The latest in sports is next.
See you, John.
Betty, how come you never tell me what's going on up at TDC?
Well, I'm glad you asked because TDC Automotive has some awesome deals. Get the car a new spare tire for just $100 plus VAT. And they have selected tires for 30% off. And for the Jeep, if you buy a selected Goodyear tire, you can get a second one for just $99.
Well.
And not finished yet. They're offering up to 30% off selected Valvoline oils and universal car mats and a whopping 50% off Energix batteries.
TDC Automotive not making no joke. I going up there now.
Welcome back and now on to the sports. In cricket, David Warner scored his first international century since serving a year-long ban for his part in the ball tampering scandal in Australia's 10th World Cup victory over Pakistan. Warner, transformed from the man who struggled in Sunday's defeat by India, busied his way to 107. Pakistan stay 8th in the 10-team table and move on to play arch-rivals India at Old Trafford on Sunday, knowing that another defeat would go a long way to ending their involvement in the tournament. Australia joins New Zealand at the top on 6 points. The scores were as follows: Australia 307 in 49 overs, Warner 107, Finch 82, Amir 5 for 30. Pakistan 266 45.4 overs, Imam 53, Hafiz 46, Cummins 3 for 33. Australia won by 41 runs. The next match will see India versus New Zealand tomorrow, June 13th, and on Friday, June 14th, the West Indies will go up against England. The annual elections for the Leeward Islands Masters Cricket Association LIMCA was held on Saturday, June 8th. Apart from the executive members, there were 2 representatives from each territory, and Mr. Anthony Rollins of St. Kitts was voted as the new president of the association. Therefore, the full executive reads: Anthony Rollins, St. Kitts, President; Dean Baptiste, who is from St. Croix, Vice President; Lydia Mulcair Harris, St. Thomas, who is the Secretary; and Diane Nisbet from St. Martin is the Treasurer. Rollins had indicated that he has been on the executive with outgoing President Alkins Rogers for a long time and has been taught the ropes and is ready to move the tournament forward. Messi and Argentina forward Lionel Messi is the world's highest paid athlete at earning $127 million in the past 12 months, according to the Forbes Top 100 ranking. Juventus's Portugal forward Cristiano Ronaldo is second on $109 million, with Paris Saint-Germain's Brazil forward Neymar in third on $105 million. Last year's highest earner, boxer Floyd Mayweather, has dropped off the list. Serena Williams is the only woman in the top 100, earning $29.2 million. Athletes had to earn a minimum of $25 million to make this year's list. Messi is only the second footballer to top the rankings after Ronaldo, and only the 8th different athlete to take the #1 spot since the rankings began in 1990. It is also the first time that footballers have ranked as the top 3 earners in sports. In athletics, Olympic 800-meter champion Caster Semenya cruised to victory over the 2,000-meter event at the Meeting du Montréal in Paris, her first race since filing an appeal against IAAF's rules on restricting testosterone levels in female runners. Semenya, 28, finished in 5 minutes and 38.19 seconds ahead of Ethiopia's Hari Fesa and Adonich Ambessa in Paris. The IAAF ruling means she may have to change from her favored 800-meter event. And lastly for sports, in tennis, Britain's Andy Murray hopes to return to the singles court before the end of the year, but thinks he's unlikely to be ready in time for August's US Open. The former world #1, who had his hip resurfaced in January, is due to play doubles at Queen's Club next week. Murray will partner with Feliciano Lopez at the Fevertree Championships in London. However, the 32-year-old says he still has quite a lot of work to do before he can be competitive in singles again. And that's it for sports. The weather is next. Welcome back. The weather tonight will continue to be fair to partly cloudy, with a 20% or a slight chance of a brief shower. The weather tomorrow will be partly sunny, with a 40% or a moderate chance of brief morning showers. The chances for shower activity will gradually diminish thereafter. The winds are east at 22 to 33 kilometers per hour, or 12 to 18 knots. The seas are 1.2 to 1.8 meters, or 4 to 6 feet. The sunrise tomorrow will be at 5:36 a.m. And that's how we wrap up the major news package for today, Wednesday, June 12, 2019. Before we go, let's take a look at the headlines once again. Nationally, Charlestown House fire being investigated, no deaths recorded, and West Indies tenure of office of Prime Minister bill expected to be tabled for second and third reading. Internationally, that's actually regionally, Puerto Rico to receive $19 billion in disaster relief. Internationally, 17 dead in Dubai bus crash after driver hits overhead sign. And in sports, Australia beats Pakistan in Cricket World Cup match, David Warner hits century. On behalf of the rest of the news team, I am Jarvis Brown wishing you a pleasant evening.